Welcome to Crypto 101 by 5 Paisa. The digital and social landscape has evolved rapidly over the past decade. And if there's one man who's been at the forefront of this evolution, it's Manish Maheshwari, the former head of Twitter India, who's now set to disrupt the education sector with his own venture, Invact Metaversity. Manish, welcome to Moneycontrol.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you for having me on your show.
Manish, I'd like to begin by asking you, we all thought that you'd perhaps move to another media conglomerate after your last venture, but you're all set with your new play in the education sector. What made you go down this path?
Yeah, I think let me start by telling you why I feel so passionate about education and also where the intersection of education and technology happens, right? So if I look at my own background, I come from very humble beginnings. And I think the reason why I'm where I am is because I got the right education at the right time. And my personal view is that education is a great way to sort of break new frontiers and sort of change the trajectory of your life. And I want to make sure that everyone has that access. And today that is possible because technology enables you to get access, which was not possible earlier.
Right.
Separate from this, because I was at Twitter before this stint, I saw how the whole virtual life was taking shape. In fact, most people for 2 years during COVID did not meet anyone in person, yet they formed strong bonds, relationships, and communities on Twitter, online, on different social media. So I realized that there is something there that can be improved and also reimagined pertaining to education. And this was also a time when technology was really evolving very fast. Virtual reality was becoming closer to execution in many forms. Virtual identity was getting redefined. And our view was that if we can bring these teams together and reimagine how education is delivered, we have a real opportunity here to sort of disrupt the ecosystem and make things really accessible and inclusive for millions of people who have been cut out from good education all these years.
Sure.
That's been the inspiration behind why I started Invact Metaversity.
That's very interesting. And especially in the recent past, the term Metaverse has entered the mainstream after Facebook rebranded their company as Meta. What is Metaverse according to you? How would you define it?
Yeah. So let me start by giving a very simple example, right? So when we operate like this, the way we are spending our virtual life, we are actually existing in a two-dimensional space. So when we do a Zoom call or a call like this, we are looking at a flat screen. When we are looking at Twitter or YouTube or Instagram, we are looking at a flat screen and imagining what is going on there, right? But think about it, that what if it could be a 3-dimension? What if rather than looking at a screen, you can be inside a screen and you can experience everything around you? And that, in my mind, is what we are trying to do, right? And I think in a loose way, people are calling that to be metaverse, but it's a combination of various technologies. One is, of course, the virtual reality. The other one is also around like, how do you move? How do you do sensation? How do you do many other things? Also coupled with that is also the fact that the whole economy can be moved in a virtual 3-dimensional space because we have much better technology and sort of advancements happening in the area of virtual ownership of assets via NFTs and also virtual identity. I mean, all of us today are interacting with our virtual self because even in this call, it's not you and me meeting, it's our virtual projection on a screen that is actually having this conversation. Imagine if this was a 3-dimensional virtual space, we would actually be sitting on a sofa next to each other and talking about it. So all that stuff put together is in a broad way is being called metaverse. In a very simplistic way, if I were to define it one line, a metaverse is an interoperable virtual space. A 3-dimensional virtual space is interoperable. And it is different from internet because internet has been 2-dimensional so far. So when you look at a website, you see a 2-dimensional site. When you click on it, you move to a different 2-dimensional website. But on a metaverse, you would be in a virtual 3-dimensional space. When you open the door and you walk in, you will have the option to go to another 3-dimensional space as well. So that's a difference between internet and metaverse.
Right. And you recently raised funding for your own venture, Invact Metaversity. And how do you think, all of what you said makes a lot of sense, but how do you think this can impact and rather reimagine the education space? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. First of all, yes. I mean, we were able to raise funding, and this funding happened quite smoothly and quite quickly. I mean, I left Twitter only in early January, so within a month and a half, we were able to raise funds, and we were able to raise funds from not only brand name angel investors, more than 70 of them who have been working in top tier companies and have been entrepreneurs themselves. But we have been able to raise funds from also venture capital funds, not just in India or Europe, but also in the US and many other parts of the world. So we have been showered with a lot of confidence and love there. So I'm grateful to them. Now, coming to your point about what is the real benefit or the differentiation, right? So when COVID hit, education moved online. And it moved online, but the form factors were two form factors primarily. The first one was about a live interaction with the teacher through a Zoom class, something like this, where the teacher is a square box and a student is a square box, and sort of it's very transactional, very scripted. There is no social community layer. That's one type of way in which education became online. And the second way in which education became online was basically a recorded video behind a paywall. So all these Coursera's, edX, and everything else you name, essentially all the recordings were put there, and it was expected, it was assumed that just by making the content available, education would be there. Our view is somewhat different. Our view is that good education doesn't mean only democratization of content. It also means reimagining the experience in the virtual world and also having a sense of accountability and adding a social and community layer, because that is a very critical part of completion and learning outcome. So imagine, like, think about the days when we went to college in the physical world, right? We used to go and hang out in college even when there were no classes, because the learning happened also outside the class, in the hallway, in the library, in the cafeteria, in the auditorium. And we used to make good friends. We used to have a tremendous social network in the colleges. And these people that we became friends with, they are our 2 a.m. friends. Even today, we can call them at 2 a.m. without an agenda, and they would be there for us, right? So this social experience and this whole community experience of being in a college somehow got completely missed COVID when education went online. So our view is that, clearly to improve accessibility and inclusion, everything cannot happen in the physical campus, even if we believe that, yes, physical campuses are important. But I think what we can do is we can replicate the same experience and the same ability to form social network and build accountability in the virtual world as well. And that is where Metaversity comes into being, right? So we are sort of not competing with what existing things are, but we are a completely different way of looking at things and also moving the trajectory to a very different dimension. And our view is that I went to Wharton, right? Ivy Leagues of the world do a great job in teaching, but the problem there is only few people can go there, right? 1% of the population can go there, but they want to create impact as well. They want to ensure that their best education, their best courses, their best teachers can be accessed by people around the world. And they can do that if they start running courses on Metaversity. In fact, many colleges have reached out to us and they will start setting up campus on Metaversity, where not only we will create our own courses, we will also have third-party course creators, and also universities and colleges run their courses so that they can make their content and curriculum available to an order of magnitude more people than it is ever going to be possible to do in a real world or in a physical space.
It's about time that education was democratized anyway, right? These are all brand names. These are your Louis Vuittons of the world. I look at your top universities, your Ivy League ones, similar to what these big brands are, your Louis Vuittons of the world and your Ferraris of the world. And not everyone has access to them and not everyone can afford them. So it's about time that everyone, the doors opened and the floodgates opened and more people could afford high quality education. But Manish, how would you describe, in fact, can you walk us through a typical classroom environment at Invact Metaversity? What would it look like? Do people need to put on their virtual headgear? And would they want to wear, headgear for extended periods of time as well?
Yeah, you asked very pertinent question, right? So the headgear option is an option. So it will enhance your experience, but it is not compulsory in the sense that even if you don't have a headgear, you can still experience the classroom and have a much better and much fruitful interaction with your teacher than you can ever have in a Zoom call or a Google Meet or a Cisco WebEx, right? And the reason for that is we have understood that the tools that are being currently used for classroom teaching, they were never meant for classroom dynamics. They were meant for like office meetings.
Yes.
And because COVID happened, schools had no choice but to use Microsoft Teams or Google Meet, right? But we are reimagining that whole thing differently. We are saying, what is a classroom setting like, right? What is the power dynamics in a classroom? What are the objectives of a backbencher versus that of frontbencher? When the kids were joking with one another, the joke should only be heard by people next to you, not by the teacher. So we need to think about spatial audio. The rendering has to be three-dimensional. So even if you don't have a headgear, it would be like you are playing a PUBG game, or like the way kids hang out on Roblox. You will see a three-dimensional rendering of a classroom and a campus on a two-dimensional screen. But if you have a headgear as well, if you have any kind of a VR headset, and then the experience is like completely different. Like you will feel like you're inside the classroom. The teacher is next to you. The students are sitting behind you, in front of you. You can raise your hand. It would have haptic sensors as well. So that will be a very different kind of experience, and that would be the aha moment. Having said that, we also realize that we can't have everything on headgear, because we can't expect everyone to wear headgear for an extended period of time. So what we are doing is we are then looking at a curriculum, saying what part of the curriculum is going to deliver more value if it is done in a three-dimensional space, and what part of the curriculum can simply be improved by rendering it in a slightly more enhanced manner. And that will also allow us to then prioritize how to sort of do the delivery and also train the teachers. I'll give a classic example, right? If you think about an MBA program, case studies is a classic way of telling about a business situation, right? And a case study would have like 20-page, 30-page case study, in which the first 5 or 10 pages are just context setting. What was the shop floor like? What was the problem in the factory? What were the issues with the supervisor? How the machine was working? Now, you don't have to describe all of that when you have an immersive environment. You can simply transport the people into a factory setup. They can look at the layout of the factory, and then they can get into a discussion saying, how do you optimize the operations of this factory setup? So you can then really cut down, and also not only cut down on the time required to enhance learning outcome, but also you can give them a much more experiential feel of actually being a shop floor for someone who has never been to a factory. So think about those use cases where we are now innovating really on the curriculum and pushing the boundaries. The other issue I also want to tell you is that the fact that VR devices have to be used is it's a good point you touched upon, because our view there is that the prices are dropping. A VR device is costing about $300 to $200, which is about 20,000, 30,000 rupees, which is as much a price of a laptop, and maybe even cheaper than a smartphone these days. And our view is that just as laptop became a classroom necessity, very soon the VR headset will become a classroom necessity, because if you wear a VR headset, you can enhance your learning outcomes. You can actually feel and experience things. For example, if you're a student of history, rather than learning about ancient Rome, you can actually walk on the street of ancient Rome and see Colosseum and walk inside the Colosseum. And that would be a very different feeling than reading a book about ancient Rome.
Right. So especially history and geography and these sort of courses, it makes complete sense, but my only thing is I've been to travel trade shows, for example, where at the booth, the guys want you to wear a headset and experience what it's like walking on the beach of Maldives, or, standing outside the Eiffel Tower. But my question is, after a few minutes, it gets a little claustrophobic. And so, I mean, this was a long time ago. I hope the technology has evolved with the last couple of years where...
But I want to add to that. Technology has not only evolved, we as human beings are also figuring these things out, right? So for example, the first time you take a flight, it's very unnerving to you. But once you take a flight a couple of times, you get used to the flying, right? The same thing happens for us. Like initially, when you put it in for the first time, your body is adjusting to it because your senses, because you're physically in one world and your mind is thinking in a different world. So it's a bit of a dissonance, but when you start using it a couple of times, you get used to it. Secondly, what is also happening is the vision and the way the lens works and the way the acoustics work, all of them have become much better. The size of the headset has come down. The battery has enhanced. So our view is that already it is a situation where you can wear it for like 2 hours nonstop without feeling nausea. And also the battery can last for that long. And I think our view is the next couple of quarters, some best engineers globally are working on this problem. So I'm sure things will only get better from here. It's like the same problem that when the phones came like 10 years ago, they were like so big and bulky and so useless. But if you look at phones today, like they are so essential for everything.
Much slimmer.
Yeah, and they are slimmer. Their battery life is much better. Even the Blu-ray and radiation problem has been solved. So I think our view is things will only get better from here. So we need to solve for the future. We don't need to solve for the past. So let's look ahead and let's look at like where the world is going. I mean, I keep saying in my company that we need to keep our eyes on where the puck is moving, not where the puck is today, right?
Right. And, there's a lot of focus on enhancing the experience for students, but what about the teachers upskilling? That's a huge area as well, right? Because how do teachers upskill their experience and what they know and how they teach in order to offer a better experience for the students?
Yeah, very relevant question to this, because what we are creating is a curated marketplace. On one side, we will have students. On the other side, we will have course creators who can be individual instructors, or it could also be like schools, like for example, like a product school or a design school, they may want to teach. So one thing we are doing, which is basically also telling them what are the features of this platform that you as an instructor can use to enhance your curriculum. For example, how can collaboration be better in this? And therefore, you need to have curriculum that talks about collaboration, that has assignments around collaboration, where kids can hang out in the library and the auditorium. And when the kids hang out, it would be their digital avatars hanging out. So one person would be in, say, Gurgaon, one person would be in, say, Gorakhpur. But the feeling they would have is that they are sitting in the library and doing the assignment together. The same thing is in the class setting, right? The class can be organized in different way. It is not necessary that you need to have a square box. You can actually see a blackboard if you want to have, or a whiteboard. You can have a notice board. You can also set up the chairs in different ways. So we are leaving it to the imagination of the teacher, saying, okay, here are the different possibilities for your curriculum. Think about which of these options you want to exercise. And with the flip of a button, your classroom would start looking like that. So that is where we are sort of opening their mind to new possibilities. And then we have also hired a learning and development manager. I mean, we have hired a couple of people from IIT and also global institutions who have done PhD in curriculum design and experiential design. And we are now saying we have put them along with our first batch of teachers. And these people who have PhDs in learning and cognitive, like they understand how the mind works and the learning environment works. They are now pushing the teacher saying, why are you not thinking about it this way? Or if you have this option, don't you think this portion of your curriculum can be delivered this way? And don't you think the recall would be better? The learning would be better. The retention of the content would be better. And I think that is where I think our curriculum development is also happening in a way where we are co-creating almost very new IPs in terms of how even the instructions should be delivered in a Metaversity kind of a platform.
Right.
So we're very excited. In fact, I personally am going to teach one course as well. So I'm also undergoing the training with a PhD in learning and development from IIT Delhi. So it's like pushing myself as well. And also along with that, we are pushing the entire teaching fraternity and the instructor community in the country and also globally.
Perhaps a lot of unlearning and learning for the teachers as well before they start training the students, right? And
yeah, I would say it is about opening a new dimension of thinking. For example, I'll tell you one thing, right? For example, we were so used to calling people on a cell phone using the telecom network. And suddenly when FaceTime came, we realized that, hey, we can do a video call as well. And it led to a very different sort of interaction, because then families came together because they could see them in person. And among the families, FaceTime was a hit. Or WhatsApp calling with the video feature on is a hit among the families.
Sure.
Right? So the question is, you don't know what you don't know until the point, and then therefore your thinking is limited, right? And once you know what are the other possibilities, you expand your horizon and say, you know what? Oh, even that is possible now. And that is the kind of aha moment we are getting when we are getting teachers. Because right now we are developing curriculum with teachers, and we have more than 20 teachers who have signed up with us. And as we are developing curriculum with them and we are exposing the power of the platform and the possibilities, their mind is also very active. They are thinking that, hey, I always wanted to teach this to my student in the following way. Now I can do that, because in a traditional Zoom call or in a classroom teaching, I could never do that. Now I can bring that example live in front of the people and make them touch and feel and experience it. So that is the kind of aha moment that is happening.
Manish, I'm sure you've thought this through, but have you thought about gamifying courses as well? Like you've got play to earn games that are massive. In fact, they really took off in the past year. You could have learn to earn courses where students earn points or perhaps some form of a cashback as they go along and as they are learning. And you could have course degrees or certificates that are sent to their Web3 wallets as NFTs. And there could be digital collectibles and POAPs, which is proof of attendance protocol, where if they attend certain offline events, perhaps, or even in the Metaversity, certain, like for your operations management course, if there's a factory visit, and if there are, let's say, 5 or 6 of those in the course, if they attend all of them, they get the POA, the POAP, which counts towards the final grade. So there's a lot of options that this has opened up as well.
In fact, the more I listen to you, I feel like you should be part of our team and maybe help us build a product roadmap, because I think many of the things you mentioned are also some of the concepts our engineers are working on. So let me give you a few examples. For example, you talked about this virtual ownership and the NFT.
Mhm.
Our view there is that because in today's world, every assignment that you do or every project work that you do is bound to be virtual, because you're not going to write on a piece of paper. Everything that you turn in would be some kind of a virtual project. So why
Right.
can't we have a mechanism where you can own it as an NFT, all your certification, all your project work, all your proof of work, all your assignments, all the credits you get. So you will own it as a student, and it would be linked to your virtual identity, and it will build a metafolio of your work, so that whenever you apply for a job or anyone looks at you, they can click on it and find out what project you have done, and then would know that what skill sets you have. They would not even have to worry about what college you went to or where you came from and who was your father and who was your uncle. You can look at their exact work, and
Right.
there would be a complete sense of ownership and authenticity, because it would be on the chain, publicly verified, peer reviewed. And there would be, like, if you didn't have that in the physical world, you don't know whether you did it or your friend did it, and did you just copy paste it or did you just copied
Sure.
it. In the
Right.
virtual world, you can actually prove the ownership of the work you did, and it will be linked to your identity. So it will be far more secure, far more authentic, and far more confidence inspiring. And it will also solve the problem of recruitment for many of the companies, because today a big part of the problem is that how do I even hire? How do I know who is good, who is not good? Here we will give you the entire metafolio of a person saying, this person went to Metaversity, did the following courses. Here is the entire folio of work they have done, and everything is certified, publicly verified, and it's on the chain, and you can verify it anytime you want. So that's one thing.
In fact, a lot of people in this industry, in the crypto industry, they don't even ask you for a resume. They want to see your on-chain activity, which you can't really fake. So you just share your Ethereum wallet address with them, and that's all. They're interested in seeing how you're building out your skill set in on a blockchain. So what projects are you interacting with, your compounds and Aves of the world, if you're lending and borrowing. And if you purchase any NFTs. And that's why a lot of people are recommended to take a book budget of a semester in the US, perhaps $500, $800, and use that to perhaps build their on-chain resume. And I know gas fees today is really high, especially on layer one Ethereum. But that's what a lot of people are doing. They're using their book budget for a semester and using it to really build their real world skill sets.
There are quite a few second and third level options that open up, right? When you start thinking about reimagining education, you have to think about reimagining. We can reimagine at every stack level,
Right.
including the points you mentioned. And my view is that as we start building it and as we start proving the use cases, new possibilities will start emerging. The one you mentioned is very, very real one, which is because everything will happen in a virtual setup in Metaversity. We will have a complete record of who is doing well, who is not doing well, what courses they are getting, where are they progressing well, where are they lagging behind, where they need a nudge, what subjects they are good at. So we'll have such rich data about people that we can not only personalize the whole the delivery of the curriculum, we can also think about, like, who is right for which role, which company they should apply for.
Right.
And also that data can also be used to then decide who needs to be given a loan. And everything can be authenticated at source, so that you don't have to rely on pieces of paper stamped by someone and sort of verbally confirmed by someone else. Those
Right.
are so old school mechanisms, right?
Right.
So our view is that it opens up many possibilities. In fact, one more thing I wanted to talk upon is you talked about the social and the gaming layer, right?
Yeah.
We are thinking very seriously about it. I'll tell you why. Because I come from Twitter and I know the power of social as a way of driving accountability and as a way of driving certain behavior. And our view is that today, if you look at online MOOCs, all these Coursera's and the MOOCs, the completion rate is low. Why? Because doing an online course today is such an isolated experience. You lock yourself into a room and you watch a video. There is no social layer. There's no peer pressure to deliver. In our thing, what we do is that not only they'll attend classes with their classmates, they will also hang out after classes in the common area. We will also have some gaming arcades. We can have library, auditorium, playfield. And they will start collecting points in terms of their activities on campus and outside the classroom as well.
Right.
And that can also build those social network and bonds and keep people honest and also accountable to one another. The best kind of accountability is the one that comes from your peer group, not the one that comes from top down, right? So we understand that dynamics, given my experience at social network. And we are also building those things. And integrating with games is not that difficult, because the best ramp onto a metaverse has been gaming industry so far, and that is why you saw the acquisition of by Microsoft of Activision, right? I mean, because games are sort of as closer to metaverse as anyone else can be, and our view is that we have to understand and build on the concepts of the gaming industry, and then gamify learning, and make sure that in the process of learning, we are really customizing the learning and driving the right learning outcomes, and then using the kind of work they have done in the virtual world to then help them get a job and then make them ready for the new world, and also build confidence among the hiring manager industry that these skill sets are actually much better, and the candidate you're hiring is so much better than going to a traditional school and looking at a paper resume where you don't even know what they've really done. Like, you are just trusting the school's name, or you are just trusting what's on the paper resume. You have there can be much better signals in today's world than going by the old way of hiring and recruiting.
Right. And yeah, it's just truly mind-boggling, right? We don't even know yet. And this is just the beginning of what we're about to experience in the decade ahead, you know. And I'd actually like to close this out with a more, and this has been a great, fantastic conversation, and we could go on and on, but I always like to close this out, you know, with a question on the metaverse to my guests, that, and me being a bit of a traveler as well, that if you could own a piece of land, a country, or in your case, a university, in the metaverse, which one would it be and why?
The beauty of the virtual world is that you can pick and choose what you want. And I think it's up to your imagination what you want to build. But if I were to be inspired, I'm inspired by quite a few places, right? In terms of universities, I mean, I went to Wharton, so it is an amazing campus built over Schuylkill River in Philadelphia. Yeah. I would love to borrow some parts of it, particularly the area around Benjamin Franklin and his statue, and have that in my metaversity. I also like IIM Ahmedabad's campus as well, and I think the architecture is amazing. So maybe some part of that I'll borrow. If I have to then think about where to build that campus, I will also pick on a few cities. For example, one city is very close to my heart is San Francisco. The entire aura and feel of being near the Golden Gate Bridge and the ambience around that, I would like to build that as well. And the other city I like a lot from the point of view of its discipline and structure is Singapore, very efficient city. Things are so well laid out. So maybe parts of that as well. And sort of the beauty here is that we don't have to settle for one. We can pick and choose what we want.
You're kind of creating your own Lego, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you have the building blocks. What you need is your imagination, and sort of you can build it out the way you want. And I think that's what I will do.
This has been a fantastic conversation, and really glad we were able to get you on Moneycontrol. I wish you all the best for your venture, and hopefully the next time we speak, it'll be in the metaverse.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure it will be. In fact, I will be organizing a press conference for journalists on the metaverse very soon. So watch out for that, and we will stay in touch, Rahul. And thank you for having me on.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.